Just switching gears a little bit. You've spoken before in a podcast about the social cues you experienced after transitioning. So the social cues of being a man. What were they, and how was that experience?
Yeah, I mean, people perceive their sense of safety, for example, depending on whether surrounded by men or women. It's a visceral response that people have, and so I learned pretty quickly that people need more physical space from me now that I appear male. So I ran into situations because I never didn't have many. I was definitely bullied and harassed for being a masculine woman. But I still was picking up on social cues, and so just doing all the same things that I had been doing, but now appearing male. I noticed people were responding to me differently, and I ran into a difficult, frightening situation one time. I was just walking down the street doing some window shopping on my lunch break, and the guy in front of me spun around and called me a faggot and, you know, accused me of like looking at his ass or something. And it's like, I was oblivious to the whole situation, but I guess I had been walking a little bit too closely behind him. And that just wouldn't have occurred to me when I was, female and appearing female. It just didn't occur to me. But and I don't think it's not like I was walking right behind him either, but people perceive physical space differently with men than they do women. And even touch, like men touch other men in ways that I don't even know if they're aware of it, but whether it's slapping them on the back, or I remember the first time a guy like put his hand on my chest. I mean, that had never happened to me as female, because that would have been really appropriate, but
Mm-hmm.
inappropriate if you did that to a woman. And it's something that I wish trans guys had more license to talk about, because I would have appreciated support just working through and figuring out all those little nuances that you can't possibly know until you're living it. But I
Mm-hmm.
remember a guy on one of the listservs. It was like one of those old fashioned email listservs that we used to have. It was a listserv for trans guys in our province, and a guy was talking about an experience with his doctor. His doctor, I think, had like patted him on the back and said, "Hey, by the way, lay off the burgers," meaning you could afford to lose a few pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And the response from a lot of the trans guys was, "Oh, that's so fat phobic. We should do a letter writing campaign against this doctor and call him out on this bullshit." And so it
Mm-hmm.
just turned into like an oppression narrative. And I stepped in with a different perception of it. I said, "Had it occurred to you that he was just treating you like a dude?
Mm-hmm.
You're transitioning to become male. Maybe he was just trying to treat you as male as a way of affirming your
Mm-hmm.
identity." And the moderator of the group jumped in and said, "No, you're being like cis heteronormative, and this is an appropriate conversation on the listserv." And some of the younger guys on the listserv popped up and said, "Well, actually, I'm finding this conversation helpful, because that hadn't occurred to me, right? That men socially interact with each other differently." Because I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
that male doctor probably wouldn't have patted a female patient on the back and said, "Hey, you're fat, lay off the burgers," right? So, but men talk to each other differently, to each other, and we have to learn. I saw that as my responsibility, and what I wanted from my transition. I wanted to do this successfully and not bother anyone around me. I wanted to be able to just function in the world as male to the best of my ability, which included learning some of those social interactions and picking up on those social cues. For me, that was an important part of my transition. And there's so little support to do that if you're buying into this queer theory narrative and your transition is all about being subversive and disrupting society. Then you're not trying to pick up social cues. You're not trying to get along with other people and
Mm-hmm.
blend in. And unfortunately, a lot of people have politicized trans to the degree that we're not, going back to this concept of a legal fiction, we're not stepping up to our responsibility in that legal fiction to say, "I want to do this in a way that is mutually agreeable in society. I don't want to do harm to society. I don't want to disrupt my community or my church or my family or wherever I
Mm-hmm.
am." But for it's become so politicized, and so many people are transitioning for political reasons. I think that they're actively trying to disrupt,
Mm.
and then wonder why we're getting such pushback.
Mm.